All right, everyone. Thank you for joining into our webinar on WordPress versus Webflow. Today, we're going to have Matt Reindell, our account director here at Fjord, take it away and facilitate and help guide you all on this process. So, Matt.
Awesome. Thanks, Melissa. Welcome, everyone. Super excited to have you here and excited to chat more about a couple of our favorite content management systems, our OG original favorite that we still love and the world's favorite. We double checked that was true. WordPress, and then our sort of newer darling favorite that we've been doing a bit more work with and seeing a ton of good stuff with that we wanted to share with you all a little bit more. Have a couple of great content experts, colleagues with me here. Alec, our director of UX design, and Kendra, one of our awesome front-end developers who has a ton of WordPress experience. So we will jump on in. I probably got the introductions in the wrong spot here, but we'll move to Webflow first, talk through some things with Alec, and then WordPress with Kendra, and definitely have time to field all of your questions at the end. A little Zoom bar or what have you, definitely feel free to drop questions into the Q&A chat as you go. No need to wait until we get to the Q&A section. Go ahead and do that at any time. Melissa will help me collate those towards the end, but if a question is in there and it's relevant for the topic we're on at the moment, and I'm nimble and savvy enough, maybe we will ask some of those questions real time as well. Again, we're super excited. So we will click past these photos of us and get started with some Webflow overview with Alec. Take it away, Alec.
Yeah, so starting off with a high-level overview of Webflow. Webflow is an all-in-one website and design development platform. So that gives the designers the ability to build custom responsive websites without the actual need for manual coding. So with Webflow, you get all the benefits of a content management system and a powerful visual editor all combined into one platform. So some of those key features include, again, that visual editor for intuitive design and content entry, familiar CSS properties such as like Flexbox and CSS Grid. So we still keep that advanced layout control, has a fully responsive design for seamless user experiences across devices. They're built-in hosting services for super fast load speeds and easy deployment, as well as we still have that ability to add custom code for advanced customization as well. And so with Webflow's value proposition, it really lies in the ability to bridge the gap between design and development. So it allows the designers to kind of bring their creative visions to life with kind of the precision and control without the need for like a hefty development handoff phase, but it still, again, allows us, the developers, to easily customize and enhance the website with their coding expertise too, if needed. So we can move on to kind of like the benefits and drawbacks of Webflow. So right off the bat, they offer several advantages that would make it like a really popular choice. Again, that responsive design. So it really ensures that your website automatically adapts to all the different screen sizes and devices, providing that seamless user experience. Also, again, no coding required. So it's a very intuitive visual editor, and it eliminates that need for manual coding. And once again, it removes that need for a designer and development handoff phase, which really allows us to have that precision and control. Another benefit is the hosting security. So they provide really reliable hosting services that takes care of all the security. So we can really just kind of focus on creating content. And then lastly, it's very SEO friendly. And also want to mention accessibility as well. So they have a really cool audit tool that allows you to, that kind of like supports all the essential SEO and accessibility practices. So before you actually publish something to staging or production, it will kind of give you notifications whether or not you're missing alt text, non-descriptive link content, contrast ratio previews, or if you like skip the heading level, it kind of gives you that brief audit before you actually push something, allowing you to your websites kind of rank well in those search engines and reach a broader audience as well.
Yeah, Alec, I know that's a question I've gotten a few times so far when I've shared info on Webflow with some of our agency partners is, especially if they're experienced doing client projects in WordPress and delivering good organic results is important to them. They want to make sure that that Webflow will allow them to do that as well. So I don't know if there's anything else to add in terms of the SEO features or like creating optimized content within Webflow.
Yeah, I really think it doesn't allow you to miss a bunch of SEO things. Obviously, there's certain keywords that you can pull in to help you rank better, but in terms of actually the development phase, it's hard to miss that big red button that tells you that you're missing either heading levels skipped or alt text or something. So kind of forces you to really think about SEO and accessibility before you push something.
Cool. Yeah, with that kind of pre-push check. If you're moving too quickly and you just try to decline and ignore that, does it stop you again and say, are you really sure?
No, you could still skip it, but unless you want that red button to go away.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So while they have a ton of advantages, it is essential to kind of be aware of some of their limitations. It has some limited e-commerce features. It does offer e-commerce functionality, but it might not be as robust as some specialized e-commerce platforms such as Shopify. But they do have integrations with Shopify API, but then that could get a little costly. And then some of the export limitations. So you could move platforms from Webflow to a different system if like HTML and CSS and post that up somewhere else and host it yourself. But things like CMS options, like blogs and stuff are going to be hard to transfer as well. And lastly, it's not as modular as some of you might be familiar with WordPress's Gutenberg blocks. So with WordPress, you could create new pages and then use the block editor tool to kind of customize those as you want or see fit. With Webflow, it's a little bit more limited. It's more static and designs unless you want things like CMS options like blogs or resources, anything that's going to be like a duplicate layout. Those are super easy to create. And but yeah, if we are designing new pages kind of from the ground up, it is a little bit harder in that sense.
Yeah, so for example, anybody who's done a WordPress project with us in the past bit has probably received that deliverable that's a set of modules that you can, header, footer, and then you can kind of just use those modules maybe within certain best practices or recommendations to create new page layouts or varied page layouts. So what you're saying is that that specific piece is a bit different in Webflow, that you're really creating the pages you want. And then from the content editor perspective, you are a little bit more limited in what new things you can create after the build phase. Exactly.
And it's not to say that you can't, it is just a lot harder to do that in Webflow than it is to do in WordPress.
Right. No, certainly not harder from a dev or a backend create new pages perspective, right? But just for kind of that content editor that doesn't have that experience to create something new.
Exactly. Yeah, so we can move on to kind of the ease of use of Webflow. So one of the standout features is it's really user-friendly interface, which allows users of all skill levels to navigate the platform with ease. It has very visual editing capabilities, so you'll actually see those changes you make in real time, allowing you to like visualize your website appearance as you work on it, and it helps us designers build custom solutions really fast. So again, with that real-time preview functionality, you get to instantly view how Olo can behave on different devices just by like clicking a button before publishing it. So that will kind of ensure a consistent user experience across all the platforms and making sure that your content looks good before it moves to live or production.
And with that real-time preview feature, I know that's something you've been telling me about. Is that a bigger impact for like the folks, the designers, the developers, if need be, creating a new site, or is that more for the content editors making updates, once the site is built?
Yeah, I would actually say both. So there's two different pages in Webflow. They have the designer, which is like kind of like the development platform, and then they have the editor. So the designer is what the designer goes into and actually builds out the pages, and that does help us speed up our workflow because we're visualizing all of it at the same time and seeing live previews, able to preview everything on different devices. And the content editor sees something kind of similar, except it's you see the website live, but now I guess I would compare the content editing system to something like Squarespace, where you can kind of actually see the text and like change it directly from the website and then publish it. So you don't have to go into, for example, like Gutenberg blocks, and you're only kind of seeing text input fields. It's more like you're visualizing and seeing everything before it publishes.
Maybe makes it a little bit easier and more intuitive to achieve the updated look and feel that you're going for, because you don't need to add a field or add text to a field, publish it to staging, go look at how it ended up, and then make adjustments on the back end and then try it again. You can kind of just immediately see that impact as you're going.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Yeah. So we move on to the admin usability of Webflow. Webflow has a really robust admin dashboard. It's like the control center for managing all of your websites. If you have multiple, it provides a super comprehensive overview of your projects, your site settings, and all the design elements. There's very robust CMS functionality as well, allowing you to organize and manage all your website's content efficiently. And we can create dynamic content and build dynamic pages without coding. And then lastly, there's user permissions and some really cool collaboration tools in there as well. So it supports tons of different user permissions, making it easy to collaborate with those team members securely, and you can grant access to specific areas of your project if you want to keep more sensitive information protected. And there's really cool commenting features as well. So you could share something with the team member, and they could actually leave feedback and comments right on that Webflow preview.
Very cool. And that dynamic content you're mentioning, would that be similar to like a post type in WordPress, as an analogy?
Yep, yeah, very similar to a post type in WordPress. So if we want to create a CMS option for blogs, like team member photos and bios, everything can be customized in the CMS.
And once again, without the need for like a developer to get involved to create that.
There would be no need unless we run into some crazy problem, but we can all do that straight from the designer.
Very cool.
Yeah. Moving on to some of the customization options. Webflow offers a range of like professionally developed UI libraries that can really help like us use as a starting point for the project. So they cover all kinds of industries and styles, providing us kind of with a head start in that design process. And they also offer templates as well. And they're very well supported. And again, for those with coding skills, Webflow has that advanced code customization. So we can add custom CSS, HTML, JavaScript, just to enhance the website's functionality as well if needed. And then one of the coolest features, I think, is the interactions and animations of Webflow. Really gives your website kind of a more dynamic and lively feel. You can actually create all the animations without code using the visual designer in something here you see in that screenshot from like the actions panel. So it's more of like a timeline driven animation based platform where we can go ahead and fully add animations without coding, which is really cool and fun to use. And lastly, I know we just touched on it a bit, is that dynamic content. So we have the capabilities to create content that automatically updates based on the predefined rules that we set up and the user interactions. It's very useful for blogs, news feeds, product lists, types of post types.
For those UI libraries, can you tell us a little bit more about how that works, especially if an organization is going through a rebrand, or an agency is doing a rebrand and maybe wanted to get an updated site in place, but knows that updated style guides, colors, etc., are coming? How does that work, or how does that impact, that kind of feature update?
Yeah, so with the way style guides are set up in Webflow, there's like a specific page that's kind of like hidden, and that's where all of your styles live, like your heading styles, your color palettes, like how links and buttons are set up. That's all living on like a static page somewhere else. So then when we are building out a page and say we want to start with like some UI libraries that can kind of speed up that process and kind of create some modules pretty quickly, we don't have branding, for example, we can create that layout and then go back to the style guide later and then update those things super easily, and it will reflect on the entire designs and the rest of the pages instantly. So it's super nice for building up something really quick.
Very cool. And yeah, so then when you actually have that new branding in place, or if you only have a placeholder right now, that's in progress, that really doesn't need to necessarily impact the specific timing of getting a better site in place. And it can be pretty easy if you create the site that way to then just update the branding in one spot and have it reflect out across the entire site.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Are there any examples you can share, or can you just speak a little bit about like when you would need to do custom coding, right? Or if one of the big benefits of Webflow is the ability to do everything or most things within that designer view, so that a designer such as yourself wouldn't need to do custom coding. What are scenarios where in general you would need to custom code, or maybe we have custom coded for a particular project?
Yeah, for example, I've used some custom code on a previous project where, say, I wanted to create a modal. I could go ahead and create that in Webflow like super custom, but I could also find JavaScript libraries from Webflow developers. So I would actually take that custom code, put it in, and then style it that way. So it's very nice for JavaScript and CSS libraries that you can just like pull something in for components. Another example, it doesn't have like every single CSS property that currently exists, because there's always like new ones being added. So for example, like a aspect ratio on images, like that is a CSS property that you could say 1/1, and that's square. Can't necessarily do that in Webflow without workarounds. So then what I would do is actually just add a quick HTML snippet, type in my style, target the class, and say aspect ratio square. And so it's a nice blend between design and development sometimes.
For a designer who has that coding, the development experience as you do, is that clunky to do in Webflow because it's designed to be used without custom code, or is it relatively straightforward to add that kind of custom snippet?
No, it's super straightforward. There's literally just a block in the designer tool that just says HTML, and you just drop that in, and it's invisible and handles the rest of it for you.
Awesome.
Yeah, so now we're going to talk about integrations. So some of like the plugins and extensions that they offer. So Webflow's ecosystem includes a marketplace where you can find a wide variety of plugins, extensions, integrations that extend the functionality of the website. These integrations allow you to integrate with third-party services and tools pretty seamlessly. So there are a ton of popular third-party integrations, such as like Google Analytics, MailChimp, and Zapier, just to name a few. These allow us to leverage the power of those tools while still managing the website within the Webflow platform. And then they also have plugins as well. So if we happen to need a new feature or some extra functionality on the website, we might not need that custom development. We can actually just find some plugins that might be able to do that for us. And those can easily be installed and managed from Webflow's dashboard.
Is it fair to say that while there is while Webflow isn't where WordPress is with plugins and integrations, that it has a pretty healthy ecosystem that's active and growing?
Yes, yeah. I mean, with WordPress and with Webflow, we really want to make sure that any like plugins or extra things that we add to the website, we want to make sure that they're well supported, well maintained, and has like a pretty good lifespan. So again, we don't want to bog down the system with a bunch of plugins if we can avoid it, but we do have that option if we need it. And tons get added like every day too, so it's kind of nice to see. Lastly, we're going to touch on a little bit about the pricing and hosting of Webflow. So they offer a bunch of different tiers, each with varying levels of features and support. The pricing structure caters to different needs and budgets, ensuring that we can find like the right plan for specific requirements. So some of those include like whether or not you need more CMS options, more content editors. There's some form submission limitations as well. So depending on what plan you choose, those increase. And then to help you choose the right plan, they have like this feature comparison chart here, which highlights all the difference between the pricing tiers. So you can make an informed decision based on those needs. And then lastly, there's like the hosting plans. So with Webflow, you get like the added advantage and reliability of secure hosting services like included in your plan. So Webflow hosting infrastructure ensures super fast load speeds, SSL certificates for secure connections, and automatic backups as well, which is super nice. So if for some reason we screw something up, we can just revert back to an old version from 30 minutes ago, and you have a log that carries on for a long time.
Would some of these items listed in these different plans be key things to think about as you're moving into, choosing Webflow as a potential option? Like if you have a lot of content editors, or if you know you're going to get a high volume of form submissions or need to have a lot of files uploaded, that sort of thing.
Yeah, yep, all those things. Those pricing tiers break it down. But yeah, like the most popular option is the CMS option, which only features 3 content editors. So if you really need more than that, you might have to upgrade to business. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think you can add additional content editors for extra fee based on that as well. But yeah, there are some limitations to. So say if you're going to post something, you have a blog that has for some reason more than 2,000 blogs, then we're going to look at like maybe upgrading that to 10,000. And if you're past that, then we might want to switch to WordPress because it can get a little costly there.
Yeah, so some of those things of if you know you're going to have that volume of blogging or volume of, that large of a site, or if you, for whatever reason, are going to, have many different folks contributing to content, those could be things to try to hit on in that very early decision-making process that could steer you away from Webflow if you were in one of those kind of outlier scenarios.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alec. We'll definitely have time, as we said, for some Q&A here at the end, but want to also touch on WordPress with Kendra. Kendra, take it away.
Hi. Okay, so WordPress. I feel like we talked a lot about it, just in relation to Webflow, and you all probably know a lot about it. WordPress is the most popular content management system in the world. In fact, 43% of the web is built on WordPress, according to WordPress. Some of the key features of this platform are that it's open source, highly flexible, and with the right stack and developer, the only limitations to your dream website are your own vision and budget, of course. WordPress is powerful, versatile CMS that has revolutionized the way we create and manage websites. It was created in 2003, so it's been around for a long time. And with that comes a lot of wisdom and a lot of bugs worked out, and it's evolved into this robust systems that used by millions around the world today. In fact, it's so extensive that I could easily fill this whole time talking about it, but instead we'll just focus on many of the benefits, some of the drawbacks to using this platform, and hopefully if you have any sort of preconceived notions or bad experiences, we'll touch on how that happened, how to avoid it in the future. So now we'll go on to the benefits and drawbacks. So some of there are tons of benefits, that's why it's so popular. But some of the standout features is that it's super user-friendly. It's accessible to people of all skill levels. I find it to be really intuitive. Due to its open source nature, its large and active community ensures that you'll find support and solutions to any issues you encounter. Furthermore, the availability of a wide variety of themes, plugins, or like bits of portable code used to add site features provides unparalleled customization options, allowing you to tailor your site to your exact needs. WordPress is sort of inherently search friendly, and it aids in boosting your website's visibility and SEO strategies. Additionally, WordPress is highly scalable, so you can add as much to it as you want. We'll talk a lot about the limitations to that, but it's suitable for a diverse array of purposes. So from simple blogs to robust e-commerce platforms, there are a variety of solutions. Along with that, obviously, there are a lot of drawbacks, not a lot, some, but however, it's important to acknowledge them. While the platform's interface is user-friendly and content management is pretty easy, extensive customization might require a certain level of coding knowledge. The ability to add a plugin to handle every site feature is very tempting. So oftentimes clients kind of go crazy with them. And so the reliance can, if it's taken too far, can sort of contribute to a lot of site bloat, which will in turn slow down your site a lot. So poorly coded themes paired with excessive use of plugins can impact website performance and introduce unnecessary risk. A lot of these plugins and WordPress itself are getting updated consistently, which helps with security and functionality. But every time that happens, you have to worry about compatibility. So regular site maintenance is important to make sure that your site runs securely and functions properly. And with that comes a little bit of a learning curve.
Yeah, would you say, Kendra, that
Yeah.
one of the tricky things about talking about benefits and drawbacks of WordPress is that it's almost a little bit of a choose your own adventure? Like, it's so flexible that, you know, you can go the buy a theme, add plugins, do minimal coding route, and you have a quick, cheap site, but it might be bloated and hard to maintain and not performant. Or you can custom build the exact tailored thing that meets your need and is super fast and awesome, but then it's probably a little bit more expensive to build than, you know, maybe you were thinking when you were thinking about WordPress. So it's not necessarily like, yeah, a locked in set of this is the features and drawbacks so much as it's sort of like, how do you choose to proceed with WordPress?
Yeah, definitely. It's hard because for a lot of problems, I wish we could give like this super easy answer. Like, this is what you do. We're going to build this custom, we're going to build this plugin, but it's going to be positive and negatives for everything, much like a lot of decisions on the web. If budgets didn't exist, like you're saying, we could build the best like lightest website possible, and we do try and get as close to that as possible, but plugins are like a super great feature that allow us to accomplish a lot in a short amount of time, but they do have their drawbacks as well.
We can move on. By the way, thank you for the couple great questions we've gotten so far. We will get to those in a little bit as we continue on here with WordPress.
Now let's take a little look at the ease of use that WordPress offers. It has a super, for me, intuitive dashboard. Gutenberg blocks allow you to create like really modular content, and it also has a WYSIWYG editor to simplify content creation and allow more flexibility. And so users get to see how content will appear in real time. One of the best parts about having a site is that the popularity allows you to draw on the vast community of users and developers. Users can accomplish a variety of tasks like content management without any coding experience. And if you get stuck, help is usually a Google away. So we can go on to admin experience next. Within the admin panel, you can see example of that there. Administrators have the power to perform a wide range of tasks, adding and editing content, managing media, and monitoring comments are all straightforward processes. Moreover, WordPress employs a role-based user system, granting different levels of access to different users. This ensures that your team can collaborate effectively while maintaining control over who can sort of touch what. WordPress is also frequently improving, so that helps. I find that WordPress, the admin experience is great and it gives you a lot of control, and there's a lot there sometimes, so it can be a little overwhelming, but once you get a hang of it, it's really awesome and intuitive. So then we can go on to customization options and sort of what I was just touching on. There's a lot there. There are a lot of different ways that you can affect content. So you can do it within the page editor. You can do it within the customization through the theme. You can do it through the site settings. So oftentimes, speaking like we were talking about drawbacks, there is, because there's so much, sometimes there's a little bit of a learning curve, but that's what Google is for. So customization options are one of WordPress's standout features. Again, this platform has been around since 2003. So they've worked out ways for you to like really be in control of the content. With an array of themes available, you can transform the look and feel of your website with just a few clicks. Within the admin panel, we have lots of control over content, including like colors, fonts, spacing, other cosmetic and functional decisions. You're not going to have quite as much control as you would with something like Webflow, where you can sort of customize it right in that editor. But so for more advanced customizations, most users can add plugins, or you're going to have to know some coding to get over like the theme settings if they're not available to be changed in the dashboard. Which brings us to design flexibility.
Before we hit on that, Kendra, just a sort of question about, outside of WordPress's bread and butter kind of marketing website, blogging, what are some things that it does well at maybe small to medium scales, but like doesn't scale super well at, comes to mind maybe e-commerce or user management, where it can totally do them, but we also see examples of, volumes or scales of use where someone grows past where that's really the right fit.
I think the biggest problems come when you sort of add things without a vision into the future about what you're adding. And a lot of times you don't have a super amount of time to go back and sort of reconfigure. But I think, so if you build a site and then you decide later, oh, let's add e-commerce, or let's add this type of user that can control things, it does add some complexity, and you oftentimes have to go back and make sure that everything sort of gels nicely together. Some problems I've seen is when you try to add, again with the plugins, like not working well together. So say you have sort of something I've seen before is a company that did sort of added like an events plugin and then a scheduling plugin. And these were two separate plugins. So they kind of didn't work well together. Oftentimes you can, if the plugins have a lot of support, you can talk to their support teams and get it figured out. So that's a nice feature. But if you don't have a developer to go in and fix it for you, it might be a little difficult if you're sort of scaling without an idea of what you want to do or fitting it into what you previously built.
Makes sense. Thank you.
So design flexibility options, I kind of like to say that it's sort of like a choose your own adventure. One of the plugins we use with almost every WordPress site is called Advanced Custom Fields. And that allows us to give you kind of as much or as little control over the design flexibility if you want. If you have content editors that are not designers and you don't want them to try to be, we can define a design system ahead of time and take care of all the colors and spacing and that kind of stuff. So you have a consistent design system across your site. Websites powered by WordPress can vary widely in their design and appearance. This is one of the standout features. With WordPress, you're probably not, depending on which theme you choose, obviously, you're not going to get a cookie set cutter site. Like we were saying, 43% of the websites on the internet are WordPress, and they don't typically, there's a lot of variation, obviously. The chosen theme is really important, and it plays a significant role in creating an overall aesthetic. That's why we at Fjord, we prefer to sort of start at like base level and customize as like to your exact needs. So we try and build things as lean and as custom as possible. That's way you don't have to spend a lot of time overwriting the sort of native theme settings, which results in a completely unique theme every time. That's as lightweight as possible. And again, I like to WordPress because it allows us to easily apply design systems so that a lot of the styling can kind of happen automatically. Next on to integrations and plugins. I don't have to talk about if we do it, if there's not a slide, but
Yeah, since we've been here.
yeah. So WordPress's extensibility is a key factor to its popularity. And every WordPress site will have plugins, and it's also one of the best options for multi-site needs. And then finally, so it's really kind of one of the things with WordPress is that you oftentimes are taking care of the pricing and hosting by yourself. So you have to be really careful, and there are additional costs with development with such a flexible CMS system. So it's important to sort of carefully choose your options and look at them, and consider domain registration, hosting plans, premium themes, plugins, and development costs. So in conclusion, moral of the story, WordPress is a great choice for many companies who want a robust yet flexible website and who wish to take charge of their content. Most of the drawbacks to WordPress and any sort of previous experiences that might be a little negative, like a lot of clients that come to us, usually result from poorly developed themes, site bloat, and a reliance too heavily on plugins, which can in turn affect speed and functionality.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kendra. We've got a couple of questions here already. We'll start hitting through, and yeah, any other questions, feel free to add them here to the chat. We'll start here with one for you, Alec. What are your opinions on Webflow's logic flows versus using a tool like Zapier for third-party integration?
Yeah, so Webflow's logic system is a relatively new feature that I haven't actually been able to implement or use yet. It looks super robust, and that was something that was missing from Webflow a while ago, was that conditional logic. yeah, I would love to use it and kind of maybe get back to you on that one. I just haven't implemented it. It'd probably be a little bit more setup time than something like Zapier, but in the end, it's probably worth it since it's all kind of in one platform. Yeah, I am interested in trying that out though.
Very cool. Thank you. Let's stick with you, Alec. Got a great anonymous question here that I feel like sort of sums up part of the idea of this webinar in a great way. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Trying to get my head around the tech stack comparison. Is Webflow more sophisticated than a Wix/Squarespace, but more bundled than WordPress as it includes the hosting and backups, removing the need for WP Engine and WordPress?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It is a lot more sophisticated than Wix or Squarespace. There are so many limitations to those two platforms. With Webflow, kind of the sky's kind of the limit with Webflow in terms of like what we can create. Basically, if the designer can envision it, then we can most likely create it. Again, if I can't get it done within the designer, then I'm going to go reach out to Kendra and she can provide her custom code in there as well to make anything happen. So yeah, much more robust than Wix and Squarespace. And yeah, it is very nice that all the hosting and backups are implemented as well in the backend. So.
Yeah, again, I think a great question and really something that we've been talking about internally and with clients as we've used this more and talked to more folks about it. And something I've been learning more about. I think, when I first learned about it, I would have thought of it as closer on the sliding scale to a Wix or a Squarespace than it really is and is becoming, which I think is much closer to a WordPress with maybe certain key differences. But yeah, for a lot of scenarios, really just as great of an option, as WordPress. But I think still important to, not just with Webflow, but with any website build in any platform, to try to be thoughtful about some key questions at the front end and make the right technology decision, right? Which is, a piece of our job here as a quote unquote technology agnostic development shop, is that we want to help make those right technology decisions for our partners. But yeah, I do think that sums it up pretty well. Thank you, anonymous attendee. And then a great question here from Rick, which I'll start with you, Kendra, but would love both of your thoughts on this. Would it be fair to say that WordPress plus an intuitive site builder like an Elementor gives you the best of both worlds, the friendliness of Webflow and the extensive mobility and flexibility of WordPress? So answer that however you want, but would be curious, yeah, your thoughts on the Webflow comparison question, as well as within WordPress, like using Elementor and or other similar tools compared to building something custom.
I think if your goal is sort of to create this custom site and then hand it off to people who don't know how to code at all, page builders can be a good tool. Oftentimes we get websites that have page builders that they want us to fix because they do start to get bogged down over time, and sort of there's like the backwards compatibility, like adding features and then suddenly it doesn't work in Elementor, or Elementor is not getting updated and that's starting to cause problems. And I oftentimes find that us building a better solution would be to have a developer build you a custom block that can do a lot of the same things that Elementor can do. That's my personal way to go about it. But if you sort of want more control, I guess, yeah, we usually avoid page builders because it kind of bloats the site. But I think like custom blocks would give you almost anything that an Elementor would give you. Is my answer.
Is it fair to say that there's at least some stylistic preference there, right? Like you can do either well, once again, it's a slight choose your own
Yeah.
adventure. And so the custom block route is kind of where we've landed. We have a good process for it, but that
Yes.
a big piece of it is really understanding the route you go, getting experience in it, and then doing it
Yeah.
well.
I think the big thing with page builders is if you know how to use them and you have a lot of experience with them, they can be really great. If you don't, it's a lot of tools that you're not actually going to be using. And so it makes the site heavier.
Thank you. Alec, any thoughts on this from your perspective?
Not really. Kendra kind of hit that. I guess the only concern about using something like Elementor is like once you implement that into your WordPress project, like you're not leaving it. There's not really a good way to get out of it. If you end up not liking it or you want to change to something else, you're gonna have to do a complete rebuild. So that's why we do like to use advanced custom fields and setting up those blocks in WordPress, because we have a lot more flexibility if things need to change. I know often that we have had projects come in with Elementor and we have to kind of stick with Elementor, which can be a bit concerning sometimes.
I know certainly from my perspective, when I see websites maybe come to us just for ongoing maintenance, one of the other big deltas, which this question isn't exactly asking, isn't was this, maybe built custom versus with a page builder, but just was it maintained and was it built well? And so I think that maintenance aspect, as we touched on with WordPress, is such a key piece that if you are several versions behind, then suddenly you're in a position where you've maybe got these security vulnerabilities or these other issues, and then you go to try to update it and it breaks key functionality. So your site is no longer working, and resolving that can be really tricky. Or if you maybe overly relied on plugins and customized some of them, and now you can't keep the plugins up to date without breaking the customized functionality. That's another area where you can get into trouble with WordPress. Great. Thank you both. We've got a couple more minutes here. So if you have any other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'll ask a question of our panelists here while we wait, just in case there's any others, but then we can certainly wrap up a little bit early if that's all of the questions. Alec, you mentioned one thing that we just had a question about, but anything else you haven't done in Webflow yet that you're excited to do on a future project?
Yeah, well, now that first question brought up the automatic flows and conditional logic, I would love to implement that somehow. As well as they also just introduced a new feature of like users. So you can actually create like kind of more of an admin dashboard type look and feel, and grant user permissions on signups and sign-ins as well. So that is something that I would also like to do.
Cool. And Kendra, one question for you. For all of our friends listening who do work in WordPress, any particular places you go that are your favorite for documentation, problem solving, finding solutions to existing problems? Any tips from a developer there that you can share with folks? Throwing this one at you with fresh off the top of my head. So
no, I think learning how to Google correctly is like, I would say, one of, if not the most important part of being a developer or working in WordPress. But I typically can find the answer I want on just WordPress's docs. Or Stack Overflow is another good one. Like any problem you run into, somebody else has. So that's helpful. There's another website called WP Beginner that has helped me in the past. Yeah,
But it sounds like you're not necessarily as often going directly to these locations as you
No.
are potentially searching Google, not quite getting the right thing, and then trying to drill down and iterate if need be to get the right
yes,
answer.
yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you both, and thank everyone who joined today. It looks like that is all of our questions. So we will wrap up, but we really appreciate everyone joining, being interested in Webflow and WordPress. We love them both, and hope to work with you all on projects in one or both in the future. As always, let us know if you have any other questions, follow up with me or your account person, contact here at Fjord, and we will get you taken care of. Thank you, everyone.